Hello, and welcome again, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us. Just going to do a quick microphone check here. Tonight is a very auspicious occasion. It affords us an opportunity to share with you some more insights and revelations which we have been made privy to and which we have been eager to share with you. As on Sunday at noon, we held a broadcast, and we did a sort of semi workshop approach. We will be covering some of the material that we presented on Sunday, only because not everyone was able to attend, and not everyone was able to watch that live stream. And what we need to share over the next 24 hours is as much for our benefit as it is for your benefit, and it needs to be repeated over and over again, because in many ways we are practicing. We are practicing the work that we're here to do in the presentation of the Atlas project, our work, everyone's work, the work of the Arc building. It's the work of all. All is one, and we are all one, and barring no one. And it was made clear to us over the last period of time that the work of the Buddha Maitreya is deeper and more profound than perhaps anyone expected or imagined. The Buddha Maitreya has been called the Buddha of the synthesis. We are going to be using the term reconciliation a lot, probably, over the course of this live stream. Because if you are familiar with the writings of Gurdjieff, you probably have read or heard the expression holy affirmation, holy negation, and holy reconciliation. Positive, negative, and neutral. Masculine, feminine, and union. We perhaps hear these terms and don't fully appreciate or fully comprehend the extent to which these phenomena, this interplay between opposing forces and forces of repulsion and attraction, this in-breath, out-breath, this dance between these two opposing forces, these two opposing aspects of reality. But it is this breath and this pendulum action which we all experience in multiple different levels of reality, including our physical reality. We all have to breathe. And perhaps we don't appreciate or realize what that simple mechanical activity at the most foundational levels of existence and reality gives birth to. And in the background, you see a small child reaching out, touching his finger to the ether, as it were. And in a moment of contact, he sets forth this chain reaction, and the great cosmic fractal universe begins to unravel before his eyes in this swirl of yin and yang, of opposites oppositely opposed, repulsing, attracting forces. This is, in essence, the way in which the nothing, the absolute source unfolds itself into the universe. But that unfoldment results in arriving at an extreme, at the limits of the unfoldment. If you breathe in and breathe out, you know that you can only take in so much breath. You reach the limit of breathing in. So that periodicity, that end of that curve, you reach the maximum. You have no choice but to turn direction and begin returning to your source. But in order to accommodate and facilitate that return, you must be able to recognize and appreciate the limits that you have attained. If you don't recognize those limits, then if you are identified with your current course and your present way of thinking, your present beliefs and your present identifications, and you cannot let go of your attachments, then you will attempt to continue packing in more air. And what you need to do is let it go. And give a sigh of relief and let the breath out and return back to the still point. We are in the times of mass confusion, great suffering for this humanity. We are at the end of an age, end of one era. We are at the end of one humanity, when this humanity has reached its maximum. And in reaching its maximum, it has produced maximum complexity, maximum suffering, maximum confusion, maximum chaos. Yeah, there is a maximum, there's a point where you can achieve maximum chaos. And now things need to be set back in order. We need to reverse the polarity between chaos and order, between destruction and construction, or rather creation and destruction. The destructive, dismantling, deconstructing forces. There's a reason why these words keep appearing in various different forms and different vernacular. You even hear the world elite talking about the Great Reset. And that's what it is, but it's a reset unlike any that we've experienced since the times of Atlantis. We know because this is our work, this is our job, this is what we do. And this is the work of the Christ, because Christ is love. And love is severity and mercy in balanced harmony, which emanates from the absolute. And some of the visualizations which we have received, which we have been given, suggest and purports something which, when we work through it together, we see it's not that way, not exactly. And we can discover this for ourselves. And the solution, the course of action is revealed to us when we use our conscious imagination and visualization and simple logic. When we use our minds in the service of our innermost being, and allow our minds to be a canvas which receives the light of lights and the truth of truths from our innermost intimate Christ, then the Christ descends and returns to the earth, our earth, in microcosm. And the more individuals it descends into, the more it affects the whole world. And we show in the background of our video here we need to share our screen, and yeah, that one. Okay, so in the background, it's difficult for us to manipulate this stuff. So in the background, we have a picture of the Christ, and he's chasing the moneylenders out of the temple. And it's worthwhile asking the question, is that literally chasing bankers out of the temple? If we recognize our temple, our temporal vessel, the vessel which exists on the line of life, and we'll get into that momentarily, then our innermost intimate Christ, the one who should be teaching and presiding over that temple, over our temporal being, has to chase out with fervor the moneylenders. What is a moneylender? Moneylender is that which causes you, which gives you something that you need or something that you want, in exchange for something of equal value plus interest. This notion of having to pay back the moneylender with interest, this is not an invention of mankind, insofar as it's the notion of karma. That if we commit crimes against someone, we have to pay, and we have to pay with interest. Well, who or what made us commit that crime? We can make mistakes. Accidents do happen. Yes, of course. But that does not mean we shouldn't be accountable for our actions and our mistakes. But especially if we continuously commit those grave errors over and over and over again, what we are doing is we are borrowing on a credit card, and that credit card accrues interest. And if we don't know how to pay that interest, and if we can't stop ourselves from continuously drawing down on that credit card, on that line of credit, we will put ourselves into such dire straits that eventually we have to declare bankruptcy. And that's where humanity is now. Humanity has to declare bankruptcy. And this is why even the world elite talk about the Great Reset. Because the Great Reset is not a physical phenomenon. The Great Reset is a metaphysical phenomenon. It relates to karma. It relates to sin. It relates to ego. It relates to Jesus, who chased the moneylenders out of the temple and, quote, descended into the dead after he was crucified, and descended into the dead and, quote, died for our sins. Sin is just another word for ego. The intimate Christ, the Christ, comes into the world and plunges the world into darkness, into hell. And the Christ descends into hell to teach. The reset is within ourself and outside, because as above, so below. In other words, we have to chase the money lenders out of our temple. We have to chase the cause of our debts. We still owe the debts. We still have the debts. But we have to stop drawing down on that line of credit. We have to stop identifying with all those desires. And especially all our fears. Fear and lust. And plunging ourselves deeper into debt. The reason why the global elite, the 1%, are talking about the Great Reset in financial terms, because as above, so below. Because the financial system, look how out of balance it is and how confused it is, how conflated and confused and chaotic it is. And it's only going to get worse. And that is, in many ways, a fractal holographic representation of what's happening in the psyche of the planet, in the collective mind, collective consciousness of the planet, which we are all a part of, which we are all intimately connected to. And we are all intimately connected to each other because we are all one. And then there's the internet and the chaos and confusion related to that, which is the internet is a mirror to the collective consciousness of the planet. And so when we talk about the Great Reset, many, 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 many things need to be reset outside of ourselves. But that Great Reset can only take place if we resolve and commit to the Great Reset within ourselves. And this reset is so profound that what we have to share here tonight will even upset Gnostics and practitioners of esotericism and the so-called magicians and the members of the White Lodge, members of the Black Lodge, people who are religious, and then of course there's the whole New Age contingent, which is on an entirely different spectrum of beliefs. The Christ is here now, doing his work, and we are here to, as his messenger, and we are here to share with you and show you the foundation and the basis for our work together to build the ark. And we will show you where the word ark comes from. So without further ado then, let's quickly in case you were around on Sunday, quickly go through some slides here. And it's worthwhile stepping through this again from the beginning, because this is a work in progress. Remember, this channel is called Atlas Information. So you are all bearing witness, and you are all participating, if you will, in the process of the Christ being reborn in the planet, and coming again, and Atlas coming to do the great work. The great work that happens at the end of one humanity and at the birth of another. So we begin with the law of zero, which is absolutely nothing. The true absolute. There's no laws. It's undefined and unknowable. And from nothing, we add 1. To 0, we add 1. And from the 0 point, we add another 0 point. And we call that 0 point something. And the origin source 0 point nothing. And we created 2 points with 1 movement. But there's a problem with something, and that is that one thing cannot be everything. Because 0 as the origin and 1 point here as a radius, this creates the phenomenon of an equator. So if you have +1, you have to have something, its antithesis must be created automatically in order to bring balance. And we call that -1, or the inverse of something, the opposite of something. It's also a thing, but it's opposite nature. And now we have the equator bisecting this circle, which is everything, which is infinity. Because we can go around and around and around and around. That's everything. Yes, and we have 2 equal radii. We now have a diameter. And we have 3 points. +1, 0, and -1. And we also have created plus infinity and negative infinity. But we'll get to that in a minute. So now the law of 2 unfolds. The law of opposites, polarity, symmetry, duality. But there's a problem with everything. Nothing, or the origin, is separate from everything. The center, the source, is not connected with the infinite. How can this be? The solution is that the law of 2 unfolds twice more, 3 times total. Or in a simple sense, we put a twist in everything, and we create what we call the Holy Eight, or the infinity sign. And now we see that the continuum of everything passes through the source. It passes through the origin at regular intervals as it orbits. So as the whole of everything revolves around the source of the origin, it revolves in this way. And this, if you plot it out in 2 dimensions, this is what creates the sine and cosine waves that we're familiar with, or sound, vibration, frequency. So what we're doing here is we take the positive circle above and the negative below, and we create 2 more equators in those circles and separate those out, because every circle has to have an origin, and it'll have 2 radii, or 1 diameter. So the law of 2 unfolds 3 times total. So what we end up with is this. We have a continuum inside everything. And this is the first dimension. This is a visualization of the first dimension. We are just visualizing the continuum, but it's still from the point of view of a point on this line. It's going from one point, it's going from the source to positive infinity and back to the source, and then negative infinity, and then back to the source. It's going to its limits, in other words, the limit of positivity and the limit of negativity, and back again. And that's the continuum. But it's really only one dimension because we still only have one line here, one diameter, defined by 3 points. But the problem with one dimension is that there's actually no real movement. Even though we have this continuum of going back, we're just going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. There's no growth. This is on the line of being, but there's no movement yet. There's nothing here that's setting this continuum into motion, into rotation. So what we do is, again, we split these two circles into positive and negative, positive and negative. And they each have, so this circle down here is negative to begin with. So if you split it into positive and negative, you're going to have mostly negative, 3 quadrants negative, and 1 quadrant positive. And if you split the positive circle into positive and negative, you're going to have 3/4 positive and 1/4 negative. So now we introduce the law of attraction. Like attracts like. And that like attracting, the tendency of like to attract like, or coagulation, produces action. And the way that works is the negative quadrant here wants to rejoin. It wants to be with the negative quadrant over here. And it tends to that position because this is all negative. And likewise, this is all positive. That's what creates this motion. So we have the negative within the positive and the positive within the negative, and that is what is visualized as what we call the yin and the yang, or the Tao. And the Tao is shown precisely in this way, in this motion, because of this relationship and the law of attraction. So the negative is trapped inside. So as it attempts to move into the negative space, it pulls, and likewise the positive pulls on the positive, and that pull causes the rotation. And like attracting like produces action. So that causes a rotation in our dimension from the north-south axes to the east-west axes. And we have a second axis and cardinal points and a second dimension, which we visualize here as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circles, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. We have the cardinal points, north, south, east, west, and of course the 0 point. But that's the 5 points. Next, those 5 points rotate the rotation keeps happening. So when you take from 4 and now you do a quarter turn, you go from 5 points to 10 points because you do it twice more. Or actually, no, you just take the 5 points and you just turn it 1 quarter turn and you double the number of points. This is actually a representation of the 4-dimensional universe and the 10 digits. 9 points total because the center point, the source, doesn't move. It's not duplicated. So if you count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But you count the 0 as well. So there's 9 points, but 10 digits. And we get base 10 mathematics, but 9 points. Because the center point, the source, is 0, and it's 3. It's the third point. Because we went from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. 0 and 3, the source and the 3 are the same. And we know the source and the 3 are the same because the Tao is the smallest unit of reality. Positive, negative, and neutral. Affirmation, negation, and reconciliation. This is the minimum required state of existence, the law of 3. So 0 and 3 are the same. So if this is the 4th dimension, the problem is, where's the 3rd dimension? What happened to the laws of 6 and 7? You can't just keep doubling everything. So what we do is we connect the points. We draw a 3-dimensional cube inside of our 4-dimensional construct, and we connect the inside of that cube, a sphere, on the center of the 6 faces. And this is how we create the 3rd dimension out of the 4th dimension. And this is important, right? Is that we go from, in the act of creation, we went from going from 1 dimension to 2 dimensions to 4 dimensions. And then it is out of 4 dimensions that we produce the 3rd dimension. If we take that circle now, this 3rd dimension, and we put it into this configuration, the law of 7 applied to the laws of 6, 7, and 6. We get the laws of 8, 9, 11, 12, and 13. 3 laws of 6 on 3 axes, 9 esoteric spheres. What we're referring to here is, this is an esoteric sphere. This is the hidden sphere inside of the 3-dimensional cube. If we take that and reorient it so that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 esoteric spheres, we have another esoteric sphere contained within that. And if we keep duplicating this process, eventually we will end up with the flower of life. And I'm going to skip through all this mathematics, but you probably are familiar with this. If not, then you can see lots of stuff on the internet, etc. Inside the flower of life, we see Metatron's cube and foundational geometry, and we see the 4D hypercube. So we see all of sacred geometry and foundational geometry inside of the flower of life. So we're talking now about the foundations of mathematics, of geometry. But let's go back for a moment to where it all started. If we create this continuum, it's at the center, but it's a continuum, and if we have it as above, so below, then we create here on an axis negative infinity, line of life, and negative and positive infinity, line of life. And then at the top, we have the line of being and limitless light. And at the bottom, we have the line of being and unlimited dark. So the vertical is the line of being, and we have the infinite dark and infinite light, just as we have negative infinity and positive infinity on the mathematical axis. But if we create a Tao north of that axis, it follows that we have to make one on the bottom. And if we make one at the bottom following the same process that we did already, then we have two more Tao, larger ones containing the two smaller ones, because each small one has to follow the same pattern. And then we repeat the process. And again, we always have this positive Tao and a negative Tao, even though the Tao has both positive and negative in it. And they're expanding. And each time they expand, they duplicate this positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative vibration, this of the vibration of being, until eventually we create a continuum. The original Tao from the center, from the 0 point, which we worked through and created together, we see the limits of the universe. That same source, that same 0 point has expanded to the 0 point of the entire universe. And yet, Roy states, right, we get the 6 and the 9. The holy 6 and the holy 9. It's right here. And we see the fractal nature of this expansion. Meanwhile, on the line of being, it's just perturbations in the being. It's just this interplay. It's this play. Light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, in this ever constant push-pull vibration. And we have 2 periods of light, a period of dark, and 2 periods of light, and 2 periods of dark. And it's always in pairs like this, because like attracts like. So we have like a dark ages followed by shifting to light ages, to dark ages, to light ages again, and so on and so forth. But really, we're just talking about negation and affirmation. Affirmation, negation. I am not. I am this, I am not that. I am this, I am not that. So at the very top, we can say we have the absolute light. We have the absolute unlimited source of light, and the we have peak mercy, and we have peak affirmation. At the bottom, we have absolute darkness and the limits of severity, or the most severe, let's say. But in the center, we have the absolute source. From which all of this emanated. This is love. This is reconciliation. If this point at the top, at the North Pole, if the North Pole is absolute light, mercy, and affirmation, then the absolute source of love and reconciliation is here, because at the bottom, at the South Pole, we have absolute darkness. The peak severity, peak negation. Now, it doesn't take much to visualize this as the planet Earth. And we know that the North Pole in summertime sometimes receives 24 hours of sunlight. And it's the North Pole, it's pointing towards the North Star, Polaris. And it will receive 24 hours of sunlight. And when the North Pole is receiving 24 hours of sunlight, the South Pole is in 24 hours of darkness. So keep that in mind as we continue. So because this whole continuum is the Tao, we have here, as you can see, some darkness in the light. Just as and that darkness is what we call self-evident experiential knowledge in solution. In other words, synthesized knowledge out of the solution, out of the subtlety of positivity. And that's the type of knowledge or gnosis, which is the gnosis of affirmation. I am this. I am the light. I am this. I am that. This is the Akashic records. This is the synthesized knowledge of thousands of lifetimes, thousands of perturbations, and thousands of expansions of the continuum, and millions and millions and millions of individuated experiences. So obviously, down here, amidst the darkness, we have a similar phenomenon taking place, which is self-evident experiential knowledge in coagula. In other words, negation. I am not. This is the knowledge of that, you know, it's the experience. This is the experience of being, and this is the experience of not being, or being and being not being. Affirmation and negation. And then between the two, we have the self-evident experiential knowledge in solution, in reconciliation. I am that I am, which is the holy name of God. I am what I am. So this affirmation, I am this, and that negation, I am not that, it's a kind of identification. Whereas I am that I am is a recognition that I am one with everything. There is only one everything. There is only the Tao. The Tao in untold expressions, permutations, computations, and fractal geometric expressions, until the very limits of absolute light and absolute dark are reached. Like our background behind us, you see the Tao unfolding this matrix, which is all made up of these spheres, these circles, like the web of the universe, just exploding outward from the 0 point. But love is severity and mercy. So let's see what that looks like. We end up with the 2 pillars, the 3 pillars. We see that on this side of the Tao, it's all light. And on this side of the Tao, it's all dark. It's all severity. We have the pillars of severity, negation, the feminine aspect of the universe. And on the right side, we have absolute light. We have the positive pillar. We have the pillar of light, the pillar of mercy, the masculine pillar. This is the white lightness of being, the one that's pulling us up toward the absolute limitless light at the North Pole. Just as this force, the force of severity, is pulling us down into darkness, into negativity, into negation. But the absolute source is perfect balance. It's reconciliation. Absolute source of love means no identification, not an affirmation of other, not an affirmation of the other, nor a negation of the other, but not an affirmation of the other, simply an affirmation of self. I am that I am. And insofar as from that source, from that singular affirmation, expands out the whole of the universe, I am everything. And I am nothing. So here again, this is where, as far as we've gotten to work on this slide presentation, oh, sorry, no, we have a little bit more to go. So, yeah. Right. So here's what I wanted to show you next. So where does dimensionality fall into this? It falls in as follows. We start with, whoops, I'm going to go back. We start with the first dimension, second dimension, and the third dimension. The three dimensions are all below because they're the crystallized severe, the physical world. The physical world that we experience has physical dimensionality. It's that union of three dimensions, like we created at the beginning, when we went from fourth dimension to three dimensions. So that means the fourth dimension is here. The first dimension of the supernal worlds, called the metaphysical world, also known as the foundation. Why is it the foundation? Because remember, this is how we began, from the 0 point. From the 0 point sprang out the first expression of the Tao. And the first expression of the Tao out of the 0 point was one half of the Holy Eight, which we see we continue into the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, and the seventh dimension, where we have the absolute. And then beneath these three dimensions, we have the lower fifth dimension, also known as Klipoth, or hell. And it's the lower fifth dimension because we add together 2 plus 3, 2 plus 3. It's actually 1, 2 plus 1, 2, and 3. This is the lunar astral plane. So this is the negative eighth dimension. So negative infinity, we have 8 minus 2 equals 6. Why is it do we minus 2? Because we have 2 points here. the source center point and this point here on this line, on this axis, on the line of life. The negative line on the line of life is represented by 6. And the positive 8th dimension on the line of life is 8 plus 1 equals 9, because it's the 8th dimension and we are adding 1 point, and that point is here on this extreme. So if we take -8 and we subtract 2, well, we add 2, this point and this point, then we get to 6. That's this 6. And then we get 8 plus 1 equals 9. That's 9. And that's the expression on the line of life. Meanwhile, we have the line of being, and here's all these, all the dimensions in between. And from here we get the tree of life of Kabbalah. And we have more slides and more animations to do yet. But we just wanted to show you how we can arrive at the Kabbalah. And you see, again, these perturbations, this relationship between max and min, and the way in which, when we arrange those, the line of being like this, all of a sudden we have the that curve, that up and down relationship. But also you can see that each trinity of trinities orients itself according to the law of attraction. So here you have negative, 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 and then here you have positive, 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 negative, 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 positive, positive, positive. So the internal and the external Yes, exactly. I'm going to put this. So, okay, so then we don't have being on the lunar astral plane when our consciousness is not awakened. We have to be born on the causal solar dimension. Yes, exactly. In other words, down here, we are not being, we are asleep. But what we need to do, though, and this is important, because observe that what we showed was this circle here was gnosis. This circle was self-evident experiential knowledge of what we are. This is knowledge of the self, knowledge of the being, the synthesized knowledge in solution. And that is on the border of the 6th and 7th dimension. Down here in the lower 5th dimension, all we can do is be lost in our lunar dream state. There is some knowledge to be had there. There's a level of existence. There are hierarchies, right? In the darkness, there's the hierarchies of the demons and the black magicians. They have their own system. It's a reflection, but they play in 3 dimensions because that's their domain. That's where they rule. That's where they mess about, and they mess about with us because that's their job. Their job is to do that, is to mess about with us and mess us up. But there's a limit. As we began, and we said at the beginning, there's clearly a limit to how far this can go. And a fantastic way to comprehend this is by way of comprehending chess. The whole world is in chess. What we see on the chessboard are the two aspects of the absolute source, the great mind of the universe, playing its game of chess. It separates itself out into two camps. One camp is called the light, the white lodge. The other camp is called the darkness, the black lodge. Holy affirmation, holy negation. And it sets itself out to play each round. And it sets itself out to play each round as adversaries, adversarial. Two adversaries sitting down at a game of at a chessboard to play their game. Now here's the catch. Here's the deal. When you sit down to play a game of chess, the whole board, and that's the checkerboard, right? Black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white. Your adversary, your opponent, is not your enemy. It's just your opponent. When the game has reached a moment where it's win, lose, or draw. Win means one opponent defeated the other opponent. Superior position, superior numbers, won the game, won the match. Draw means things have gotten so convoluted and so complex that the two players look to each other and say, okay, let's call it a draw. And they shake hands and they sweep the board clean and they set the board up again. Remember this. To continue playing the game, at some point, the game will end. The game must come to an end. It's a mathematical, not mathematical probability, it's a mathematical certainty that if you begin a game of chess, eventually the game will come to an end. It must end. Win, lose, or draw, it must come to an end. And when it does come to an end, the two opponents shake hands, congratulate one another, or whatever the case may be, and reset the board. And reset the board. The great reset. Both players reset the board. Because they're not enemies. They're just opponents. And chess, the game of chess, is not designed to hurt anybody. It's a game. It's not designed to harm. It's not designed to it's just designed to test. It's a test of skill. It's a test of concentration. It's a test of patience. It's a test of so many, 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 many things. Chess is the game of kings for a reason. And the queen is the most powerful piece on the board for a reason. We may as well, Ryu, there's nothing honorable in suicide. There's no honor in suicide. That's a trick of the ego. We lived in Japan. We can speak with authority on that matter. So this is a religious belief. The samurai code, this code, that code, this tradition, that tradition, all of these things, all of it was part of the chess game that the Black Lodge and the White Lodge have been playing with this humanity since the fall of Atlantis, since Atlantis was destroyed, since the birth of our humanity. We've been playing a chess game. That game is at an end. The reason why you see so much people tearing down statues and, you know, destroying history, rewriting history, attacks on, you know, the family unit, traditional family roles, gender roles, the patriarchy, all of this stuff is taking place because these are the forces of nature renewing itself. And it's also the forces of mechanical nature, the forces of the Black Lodge, because the Black Lodge is responsible for destruction, right? Negation, destruction. The problem is that they're really good at it, and they also are the forces of confusion and chaos and negative chaos. And what we inadvertently see happening is we fall victim to that, and we identify with that, and we allow too much chaos and too much negative karma to be accrued in the process. We descend into hell, and we end up falling for their trap. But what we're here to tell you now is that we have reached the end of the game, and that there's we've reached the limit to how far that expansion can take place, because this planet has reached the depths of hell, depths of confusion, the depths of suffering, the depths of chaos, financial chaos, and soon to be, this will soon be expressed on the physical plane. It was heralded by Hurricane Ida, and that they did not name that hurricane by accident. Ida, as in Ida and Pingala, the two energetic channels on the Tree of Life, which, by the way, that's another thing that, you know, Ida and Pingala, the Holy Eight, and this relationship, the Holy Eight, and also DNA, because you see that line, when we reach the limit, the limit of infinite light and infinite darkness, the Great Reset means the 2 points, the 3 points come back together as one. And where those 3 points come back together as one, we get the ArchAion, the Great ArchAion. If you've studied Gnosis, or if you read the Piece of Sophia, there's a lot on here, and I'll walk you guys through it step by step. You may have heard of the Aeons and the Archons. Well, the Ark, what you're looking at is the Ark of the Covenant. What you're looking at is the ArchAion. This represents the 7 churches of Asya, which is also congruent with the 7 chakras. But these are the 7 temples, the 7 aspects of civilization, which must be renewed, which must be created in order to get through the turbulent waters, the troubled waters. And here we have the word arch, which stands for the actionable reset, reconciliation, and renewal of Christic humanity. An actionable reset and reconciliation and renewal of Christic humanity, arch. And arc means ark, which is the portal to truth, a vessel of love, a bridge over troubled waters, the strong box of salvation, and the strongest form made by man or nature. All of that is contained in the ark, the arch. As in the Ark of the Covenant, the strong box filled with the law and filled with the knowledge and the salvation, which you carry, which humanity carries before it. And remember, that's on this side of that's the pillar of severity. On the pillar of mercy, you have the aeons. Act inward and onward now. It's a call to action, here and now. Act in, on, Tao. Act within and without, onward, in and on. Not in and out, in and on the Tao, because we all rest, we all exist on the Tao. And the Tao is within. So as the Tao expands, even if we're on the infinite maximum of the Tao, we are on it. We are in it, but on it. And everything that rests on it, if we recognize that the Tao, ultimately, in our heart of hearts, we are the source, we're the source of everything, then we can be in it but not of it. That's the light, the aeons, the supernal worlds. But the true Tao, at the point where the game must be reset periodically, and it must be reset periodically when the limits have been reached, the archons and the aeons must come together. And they must come together and they must work together to produce the ark, to build the ark, and to work together to reset the board and reset the pieces and prepare humanity for the next round. Or put another way, prepare the planet and prepare the seeds for the next round, for the next humanity, and plant the seeds which will be the next humanity. In other words, we're going to leave this up, and but before we walk you through it step by step, point by point, we have always sought solutions where others only saw impossibility and only saw corruption and only saw we wear this cross. This is the cross of Saint Stephen. Now, the cross of Saint Stephen has 2 crossbars. The reason why it has 2 crossbars is because Saint Stephen was the first Catholic king of Hungary. Before that, he was called Arpat I. But when he marched the Magyar people into the Carpathian Basin in 896 AD, he was courted by both the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, and also the the Patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church. So Eastern Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism were both trying to convert Hungary, the Hungarian king, Árpád I, into either Roman Catholic or Greek Orthodox. And he heard the petitions from both sides. In the end, he said, well, Hungarians, the Magyar, came from the east into the west. So we're not going backwards. We're only going to go forward. So he said, we're going to be Roman Catholic. However, our cross is going to have two crossbars, one representing Eastern Orthodoxy, the Orthodox Catholic Church, and one representing the Roman Catholic Church, because in his knowledge, he knew that the Great Schism should never have taken place. He heard the petitions of both sides, and in his mind, he said, why can't these two sides get along? This was still very early. It was only a few hundred years after the Great Schism. So he was like, what? He couldn't. What? Why did this split happen? Why should it be? Let Hungary be the land where Eastern Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism and Western Roman Catholicism can unite and be one. And he was declared a saint by the Roman Catholic Church for obvious reasons. He converted Magyars to Roman Catholicism. But the wisdom that he had, the insight, the self-knowledge, he could see that this great schism was completely artificial. It was an illusion. There's no great schism. There's no schism in Christianity. There's no reason for any Christian sects to be separated from one another. Especially when we are talking about the return of Christ in the end times, and the return of the Christ principle and the Christ force and the intimate Christ within each and every one of us. It is ridiculous to talk about schisms and to talk about this camp and this religion and that religion. It all has to go. And Western philosophy and Eastern philosophy, the plague that is truly infecting this humanity is that plague of separation, that plague of the other. I am this, I am not that. I am not him. I am this, I'm not that. It's identification. Identification. And attachment. There's another reason why we wear this cross, and that is the fact that there's an expression in Gnosis that talks about the cross of light. And the real cross is, we have three, if you turn it on its side, we have the two pillars of the tree of life, and the third pillar in the middle way, the golden middle, the path between the two pillars. So that's why we're Attlas with two T's. We're Attlas with two T's because the pillars of Jachin and Boaz, between the pillars of severity and mercy, is the pillar of light, is the pillar of Christ, is the pillar of the source, the pillar of the being, the path to the being. the path the Christ takes to come and descend down to the earth and descend down into hell, to awaken people and to forgive sins and to pay karma. And we are here doing that work, here and now. But that work must be done on an individual basis. All of us must undertake that work here and now within our own selves. We must chase the money lenders out of our temple. Those aspects of us which cause us to spend our energy and spend our sexual force, spend our sexual force, and give up our consciousness, our awareness, our concentration. And in the process that these money lenders get us to do this, they charge us interest. The universe charges us interest, because the Tao must seek balance, must find balance. And in its attempt to constantly seek balance and find balance, it must constantly be in a state of rebalancing. And that's what one learns when one works with ecosystems. And when one lives with ecosystems, high order rainforest ecosystems, and one recognizes that nature is not in balance, nature is constantly balancing. Seacat asks, but aren't we each unique in Christ's image? I agree, we are all reflections of one another, and we are one, but those two concepts contradict. I'm a bit confused. Yes, because there are individuated essences of the intimate Christ everywhere in the universe. They're called monads. They're called beings. Innermost, the Atman, but beings. Now, these monads have three different aspects. One is the being, one is the consciousness or the divine soul, and one is the human soul. That human soul, if it's fallen, if it falls asleep, the consciousness falls asleep and gets bottled up in the mind, in the emotions, in sensations, in the physical body. We are unique expressions of the Christ, in the same way that every cell in your body is a unique expression of your DNA. But is it not still part of your body? Every cell in your body is unique. No two cells are alike. Every cell in your body has the same DNA, but they all function slightly different ways, especially if we're talking about, skin cells and blood cells and hair follicles and organs and you name it. And each one of these is like a fractal, orders of magnitude fractal. Like if you count up all the organs in the body and you count up all the organelles in the cell, you're going to come to the same number, give or take. The same functions happening in the cell: respiration, excretion, intake. All the same basic functions happen on the microscopic level in one cell in your body, and it's all happening simultaneously in all those varying cells in your body, all at different times in different ways. All those cells are unique. They all have the same DNA, your DNA, that unique expression of the Christ in physical form, and yet it's all you. So it's not that difficult to comprehend. All you need to do is look for the analogous, observe the analogous nature of nature, and how as above, so below, and everything is a fractal representation of everything else. And you can discover that everything is analogous to everything else. We are all individual analogs observing the ultimate methodology. There is one ultimate methodology. The aum of life, the analogous ultimate methodology. So if we can awaken as individuated analogs in observation and seek the ultimate methodology within ourselves, then we can become masters of the universe. To have self-evident experiential knowledge of the ultimate methodology within ourself, at the heart, at the nexus of our very being. We realize that at the 0 point and nexus of our very being, we reach the 0 point and nexus of the entire universe. And it's a nexus of balance. It's a nexus of acceptance, of allowance, of peace, of harmony, of joy. No fear, no animosity. And it's a recognition that our opponent is just that, just an opponent. It's just an opponent that we face in order to play this game, to challenge ourselves, to learn about ourselves, and to grow. This is in part what Carl Jung referred to as the integration of the shadow self. When one realizes that the shadow self has a purpose. Yeah, Michael Chase. That's why it's called a cell. Exactly. Well, we are all cells of this planet. And this planet has a soul, has a being, has a monad, and we are caught up in its karma. And this planet is fallen. That's why this humanity is fallen. And so but there is a way for us to work our way out of it. And the Christ comes to pay a great deal of karma, yes, but also with the practical side. And the slide that we're showing here is, you must admit, very practical. It's the Attlas project. We even have our various different logos associated with the various quadrants. In the middle, we have seek plus seek and see via self-evident experiential knowledge, and see visual aid. What is see visual aid? That's around the perimeter here. It's strategize, engage, and execute with virtual interactive simulation, universal adaptive language, and actionable intelligence discourse. That's what visual aid stands for. That's what it means. It means that it's time to stop all this superfluous talk and all this confusion and babble and psychobabble, and shift back to an essential, universal, adaptive language that allows for our consciousness to use our visualization and conscious imagination to create interactive simulations, and use the power of symbols and essential communication to virtualize and visualize, in order that we may manifest, in order that we may create in the world that which we are inspired by, and that which has come to us in our imagination to improve matters, to innovate, to serve. Actionable intelligence discourse, to aid humanity, to aid others, to aid this humanity in its time of need. We need actionable intelligence, an actionable intelligence discourse. Something that communicates the need to know information in a way that people can act on it, that people can use, not endless navel gazing, not endless theorizing, arguments, etc., etc., etc. Endless debate, endless going around and around and around and around and around, and never synthesizing any real self-evident experiential knowledge. But see, visual aid is designed to produce exactly that. After all, we're still working through this PowerPoint presentation, for example. We're still working through the visualizations, but in a very short period of time, in a very brief number of slides, just using some simple shapes and diagrams and steps, step by step by step, we're able to deconstruct the Tao. We're able to explain how we get from zero to the universe, and the universe that we know, and the tree of life and everything from nothing. And we can explain this to atheists. And then we can say, now go and pick up Walter Russell's A New Concept of the Universe and read his chapters on the expanding, the counterbalanced forces of expansion and contraction and affirmation and negation, and how this is an electric universe, and how these opposing potentialities are the actual nature of electricity, which is the underlying foundation of the universe, which, by the way, in Kabbalah, the ninth sphere on the tree of life is called the foundation. And the ninth sphere, as we showed, was this that first Tao, right? We said that was the fourth dimension. In Kabbalah, the fourth dimension is the ninth sphere on the tree of life. And that's why we still have work to do on this PowerPoint, because we want to get to the point where we show the tree of life, and we show precisely how the fourth dimension becomes the ninth sphere, which is the foundation of physical reality. In other words, when in Gnosis and whatnot, and they talk about the limitless light, the absolute, and everything else, really, the light descends from the absolute into the ninth sphere and creates from the ninth sphere. It descends from the absolute down, and it descends into the sixth sphere, is the sphere of willpower. The sixth dimension is willpower, the will, Christ's will, the intimate Christ within's will. And then in the fifth dimension, we have the mind and the emotions. And then in the fourth dimension, we have the physical. The fourth dimension, we have the ninth sphere, which is the Divine Mother. What descends is the feminine through all the spheres into the fourth dimension, and from there vibrates. But all of that, frankly, is, to the Christ, kind of humorous, because the reality is that the universe is electric, and from the fourth sphere, it must be, just looking at this, just feel into it, use your intuition, use your common sense. The way this Tao expanded out from nothing, it has to expand this way, because it has to expand in both directions. It has to be balanced. So the true 0 point, so this is absolute limitless light at the top, but the true 0 point, the true source, is love, is reconciliation. Just as we showed the three pillars. There's the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity, but betwixt the two pillars is the pillar of light. That's the pillar of being. It's the pillar of love. And the 0 and the 3 are 1, which means White Lodge and Black Lodge are one and the same. They're not enemies. They're just opponents in this game. This is why we do not hesitate to say to you that we are the Buddha of the synthesis. Because we are synthesizing, we are bringing back together that which was torn asunder and separated, to the point where we must recognize the game and we must play the game as we will. Do as you will, as your being instructs you to play the game. Choose the side you wish to choose. That's fine. You have the free will to do as you will. This is where Aleister Crowley's erroneous teachings come into play. Do as you will. That's fine. But if you are asleep, and if you are identified, and you are not connected with your innermost being, you're not connected with the source, you're not connected with Tao, you don't know what your individual innermost essence of the Christ wills you to do. And if you don't know that, and if you're being batted around by the forces of mechanical nature, then this separation is only intensifying. And that's why everything is intensifying. And the suffering is intensifying. Because the universe has expanded as far as it can go. It's taken that breath, and now it has to go on that return journey. But meanwhile, if those who are not connected with their being don't know that it's time to let it all go. Let it all go. There's another slide here. This one, which we showed this on Sunday. Okay, so this is how from the Holy Eight expands out, right, into the different levels. We're showing out in a different way. So eventually we'll reach a limit. And when we look at the great cosmic night and the great cosmic day, here we have the mental plane, astral plane, etheric plane, and physical plane. You can see here at the 5th root race, we're at the bottom. We're at the bottom of the physical reality. There's no place left to go but up. There's no place left to go but up. Except that we're on a fallen planet. And we can always go deeper into hell. We can always intensify the extreme and the depths of separation and the animosity between White Lodge and Black Lodge and these people and those people and us and other. That separation, that adversarial repulsion can always intensify, and in the process we can accrue much more karma. We can make things worse for the next humanity based on what we do and how we do it and how we approach the resetting the board, which we now face, the Great Reset. So in the center we have gnosis, self-evident experiential knowledge, and a way for people to see and engage with it and share it with see visual aid. And around that we have 6, you can call them pillars, Together, we call these the seven churches of Asya, even though seven churches of Asya, yes, relate to the seven chakras, and we know that on an individual microcosmic level, that's absolutely true. But we're not talking about the individual microcosmic level now. We're talking about practically the planet and practically humanity. And while it's all well and good to awaken your seven chakras, and we need to do that, and we need to boot the money lenders from our temple, absolutely. On a practical planetary level, Atlas has to achieve what you see before you here. And at the top, we mentioned this already. We're going to start at the top and go around. Actually, no, we're not going to start at the top. We're going to start here at sound empowered ethical metaphysical science. We're going to start there because this seems to be this seems to be, as Samael and Mayor described it, the Antichrist. A big problem is this humanity's identification with the material plane and physicality. And materialist science is like a cage for the mind. Materialist science is constantly reinforcing the idea that we are physical, that the universe is physical. The universe is not physical. The universe is electric. And this is all a simulation. None of this is real. It's all an illusion. What the Hindus called Maya. But so long as we are stuck with what physical science tells us the universe is like, our consciousness will remain blocked, and our mind is going to be stuck in this a holding pattern. And what we need to do is free the mind of that and free the consciousness of all conditioning, and all fear of the unknown, and all comfort and security related to physical existence and the solidity of it, et cetera, and the familiarity of it, which breeds that sense of comfort. The universe is electric, yes, but even before it's electric, and it's sound. The power of sound cannot be understated. We have to stop listening to harmful music. We have to stop exposing ourselves to detrimental low vibrations and harsh vibrations and disjointed vibrations, and come back to the beauty and the wisdom of harmony, the chorus, the harmonious, beautiful sound, but also harnessing the power of sound in service to others, and recognizing that if everything is electric and if everything is sound, if we can become masters of harnessing sound, we can be masters of this universe, of this physical plane. Like the fellow who built Coral Castle, and like and as the Atlanteans built the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the Egyptians built all their great works with the monoliths and the giant rocks and boulders, and did all of it was with sound. To really well and truly comprehend that, but not in its base physical form. Oh, the compression and expansion of air. No, comprehend sound on the metaphysical plane, the compression and expansion of ether, which is the source of all electricity and electromagnetism. We are moving into an electric age. We already see the electrification of the automobile is well underway. And it is not by accident that Elon Musk called his company Tesla, and that he practically single-handedly has ushered in the electric age on the automobile. General Motors attempted it back in the 80s, but then they decided to squash their EV1 program and they destroyed all the cars. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories about that. It's probably more realistic that they knew that the world just wasn't ready for it yet. Not to say that the world's ready yet, because our battery technology is so primitive and everything else. However, at least it's an expression in the right direction. It's a sign. It's a sign pointing us in the way that the science of the next humanity must be sound, empowered with sound. It must be ethical and metaphysical science. And we have a mantra for that. We have a mantra to help manifest that, to help bring and crystallize that into reality. Each one of these headings, each one of these chakras has an associated mantra. This will be absolutely essential as we move forward. And we already have 2 different entities that we are working with to help make this happen. One, of course, is Attlas Information, which is our YouTube channel and our blog, in which we can, again, just communicate to the world as best as we can. But we also have incorporated a not-for-profit organization called Genesis Eco Fund. Now, Genesis is the not-for-profit arm of Peapod, and we'll get to Peapod in a minute. But Genesis, its mandate is to be an educational organization. Its purpose is to usher in and educate on fourth dimensional science, 4D science, basically the science of Walter Russell and Nikola Tesla, the science of the 4D vortex science. And again, we have that established, it's set up already. Now, is it very active? No, because we're just one man. We're just one person at the moment. But the reason why we're having these talks and giving these live streams and showing you all this is because in the arc, what good is an arc if you can't attract other people to come join and come be a part of it and come contribute? So for this area quadrant, then we have 2 different entities that we have established and are working with to help bring about this seams. Moving clockwise to the top, the other major problem that this humanity faces is its inability to deal with its own psychology. We have explained this in our video on the Aum of life, the analogous ultimate methodology. And we explain how if the body has an immune system to help ward off infection and infestation by parasitic entities on the physical plane, doesn't it follow that we would have a similar system in place to help ward off infection and infestation on the metaphysical plane? You can see why we have to talk about metaphysical science first. And we move into the analogous ultimate methodology from there, because we actually introduce the analogous ultimate methodology in the metaphysical science. And we can do that by looking to any phenomenon in nature. The analogous ultimate methodology, the great aum of life, is at its heart, is at its core. The Tao, what does not kill you makes you stronger. The push-pull, the push-pull and the whole Tao and everything that we have additional slides in this presentation, which begins to look at. We go in through number theories, mathematics. Here, we have a slide here that gets into magnetism and the law of three, and then how magnetism relates to the Tao, and how the Tao actually explains magnetism better than physical science does. For example, physical science thinks that opposites attract, that opposite poles of a magnet attract, and they do not. It is the nature of the Tao and the negative within the positive that makes the attraction, that makes it seem like it's an attraction and a repulsion of opposites. It's an attraction of like attracts like. So this opposites attract stuff is an illusion. It's an illusion of physical science. So coming back to it then, at the very top, top of everything is human psychology. And to work with the Aum of life, the analogous ultimate methodology, individuals must become Iaums, individual analogs observing ultimate methodology. The analogous ultimate methodology is in all phenomenon, but it needs to be activated within ourselves consciously. We need to consciously work with it, which means as individuals, we must become individual analogs of it in observation, in activity. We must be Iaum, Iao, and Iao. Why Iao? Because E is the crown chakra. That is the mantra of the Christ. And O is the heart chakra. That is the chakra of well, it's the chakra of everything. It's the chakra of the universe. And it's a chakra of love. It's a chakra of the heart. But A is in the thalamus gland behind the heart, and it is the Iao is the union of heart-mind. So for the Christ and love to unite, the Christ is love, for the absolute light and absolute dark to unite in the heart. And then M, Iaum, the O's, the solar plexus, and M, the sexual organs, the sexual force. So now you have Iaum, the sexual energy. That's the fourth dimensional force, the sexual energy. And uniting all of those and working with all of them intelligently, consciously, and being an observation of it. And this needs to be restored. We have into our species. And there's another mantra that we have, which we couldn't put it together and couldn't fit it all together onto this page. But as we expand this out into our book and into future presentations, we will have the ability to explain this in a little bit more detail. But to be a true human being is to be an Iaum, and to have peace, to be able to have peace no matter what is happening around us. This is essential. This is an essential skill and an essential capacity for the end times, for the Great Reset, to just be able to survive from a psychological point of view, not be traumatized by everything that's going to be taking place and the destruction of this humanity. But it is also the foundation for the next humanity as we set forth into what will eventually be called the New Golden Age. Because it's not enough just to believe that you are one with the universe. It's not enough just to believe this or that teaching or dogma, or, that's, yeah, it exists in the mind, but it's in the inferior mind. It's in the mind of the inferior self. To be an Iaum is to be working with the analogous ultimate methodology at the root of all phenomena, including ourselves, is to be working with the Tao and the innermost intimate Christ and the source of all things, and to be able to cope with whatever life throws our way without identifying and without falling victim and falling into the traps that are set for us, and that cause us to accrue interest in the karmic sense. So on this point, on how to be a true human being, an individual analog of observing the ultimate methodology, so an expression of the ultimate methodology, we have U method, which U method, of course, stands for ultimate methodology, and no you, no usis, seek yourself. We have these two entities created, and U method is actually an app. It's an application for self-observation and self-tracking. And no you is really just going to be a repository and for knowledge and skills. And also, it's really, no you is really all about knowing yourself, your true self, and self-actualization, achieving the realization of your true self and your true self's purpose. So your higher selves, your being's purpose for being. And that is the only source of genuine peace. And it's the only source of genuine satisfaction in life. You can try to, if you're disconnected from your being, if you're disconnected from your source and disconnected from your purpose, you can try to fill that void, and the world will give you veritable limitless options to try to distract yourself and fill the void of being disconnected from yourself. But nothing will satisfy. You will be a hungry ghost. You will be walking through life, and sure, things will be exciting, for a while, whatever, but then eventually everything will lose its flavor. Everything will lose its charm, lose its sheen. You'll get bored of everything eventually. And in the end, all you will be left with is that empty, longing, nagging feeling that you are not who you think you are. And that you are just a character in an MMORPG, and you don't even know who your inner player is. You don't know who your being is, who came here to play this game for a reason. Going clockwise to the next circle, we have, now this is took a liberty here with this mantra, but it's Ham Messiah. There's actually a lot in here, and there's the E can be an I, so we have like Isaiah, but you can also see the word Messiah. You can also see Hamsa, Hams as in Hamsa meditation. This is an extremely powerful mantra. Hamsia. And if you just drop the E and the I, then it's just straight up Hamsa for Hamsa Pranayama meditation. But it stands for Holistic, Active, Managed, Ecosystem, Integrated, Advanced Human Habitat. That's a mouthful. And it might sound really intellectual. It might sound like a lot of words. But really what we're talking about is high order indoor rainforest ecosystems and living with that. Living as a part of a high order rainforest ecosystem. Living within that matrix, meditating within that matrix, where you are not separate from nature. You are not divorced from nature. Nature is not your adversary. You are working with nature in her highest expression. It's an expression, a higher order rainforest ecosystem is expression of mutual harmony and symbiosis. You are experiencing fourth dimensional harmonics in a way that you've never experienced before. And this is why we have our company, Peapod Life, already set up and established. And we believe we've shown you this before, but maybe we'll just do a quick yeah, okay. So this is just, again, this is like just a rendering and our smallest expression of what a peapod is, a peapod community. And it's an indoor rainforest ecosystem arranged in a pyramid beneath an ecodome, surrounded with living spaces, which we call peapods. And it is a gigantic, it generates a gigantic toroidal field of love, a space of a high order, toroidal field of mutual harmony and symbiosis, a space of love. And everybody living in here will experience that energy and live in the middle of that energy. And with the way things have been going, with people working from home and everything else, the reason why we are working on this and we want to build our prototype, our first one, as soon as possible, is because people don't know what they're missing. It's until you experience, until you have self-evident experiential knowledge of what living with an ecosystem is, you have no idea what you're missing. It's our hope that we will be able to work with investors and financial backers and angel investors or whatever that will recognize the value that, and also recognize that as the weather gets worse and as the climate and as the planet becomes less and less hospitable and habitable to us, we will need more and more to create advanced human habitat, which is protected from the elements outside. And that we will need that kind of shelter. We will need an ark. And this holistic, active, managed ecosystems, integrated as advanced human habitat. It's not just advanced habitat for humans, it's habitat for advanced humans. It's habitat which breeds and nurtures and supports advanced humans. Individual analogs observing the ultimate methodology. Living walls. The individual that we work with, Wolfgang Amelung, he's the inventor of the high order rainforest ecosystem. He is the inventor of the living wall. But whereas no other company's living wall can survive, the plants die. Some of these living walls that they installed, it was a fad in the early 2000s. Early to mid 2010s. So they installed some of these living walls that were huge, 3 or 4 stories tall. Those living walls were costing like $100,000 a year in plant replacement because the plants kept dying. In our living wall ecosystems, in our indoor ecosystems, the individual of Genetron Systems, who is the inventor, Wolfgang, he has living walls that have been alive for 17 years and not a single plant has died. There's just, the usual leaves and things you got to clear out, of course, but he's just very, 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 very rarely does he have to go in and actually replace a plant. That's because everybody else's living wall is just a living wall. Wolfgang calls it the candy store. Ours are actual ecosystems. And they are intelligent. They're self-organizing. It's just true sustainability. There's so many people out there worried about sustainability and trying to figure things out and say, why don't you work with the intelligentsia of nature? Why don't you support nature and ask nature, what do you need to live on Mars? And you give nature what she needs to live on Mars, and then she'll take care of the rest. This idea that we're constantly second-guessing nature is a very physical science-based approach. Very impositional approach. We're going to impose onto nature something, whereas peapod life is the reverse. We're going to work with nature. We're going to work within nature's matrix, but we're going to select the highest order of nature that is known to us. We're going to choose the highest order of nature's matrix, which is the high order rainforest ecosystem. No soil. There's no putrefying soil, no, right? It's just water. It's all reverse osmosis water or rainwater. It's very low mineralized water. High order rainforest ecosystems are a nutrient desert. What does that mean? It means that it's filled with nutrients. It's filled with an abundance of nutrients, but those nutrients are all being held dynamically and alive by the organisms in the ecosystem. And they're constantly in a state of exchanging those nutrients. And not only that, the ecosystem itself has to feed because it's a nutrient desert. Its organisms are reliant, its organisms are required to feed. So you have an ecosystem which is hungry. And the water in the ecosystem sucks toxins out of the air. It purifies the air and it purifies the water because it's hungry. And the microbes, the microorganisms on the roots of the plants, because the plants are not in soil, the plants are in a growing medium, but it's not soil. So air can freely pass through that pyramid, and it can reach the roots of these organisms where their microbiomes live. And it's the microbiomes, the probiotics of the plants, which break down the toxins in the air and clean the air, such that in places like Montreal, Wolfgang has ecosystems where he has measured the air quality of office buildings that have contained his ecosystems, and he can compare the air quality inside versus outside, and the air inside is cleaner by a factor of 10 than the air outside. That means all the off-gassing, all that toxic residue from building materials and glues and paint and God only knows what, all the off-gassing that leads to sick building syndrome, all of that gets eaten up and broken down and is food for the ecosystem. That's because it's hungry. We keep it hungry, keep it a nutrient desert. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. When you have to struggle, when you have to have a competition for survival, when you have to work at it to survive, you become stronger. It's like lifting weights in the gym, or it's like fasting. Your body improves, your body becomes better. Your body seeks other sources of energy when it's fasting, and one of the sources of energy it finds is free radicals and all old tissues and dead tissues and cancer tissues and cells and all sorts of stuff. It's called autophagy, where the immune system starts breaking down garbage inside the body in order to gain energy. Autophagy. So ecosystems, a high order rainforest ecosystem does that to the internal habitat, the internal environment that we live in. And again, this is like hamsa meditation energetically in the body when you're transmuting negative energy and you're cleaning out negative energy from the body. You're doing transmutation as a single person with the hamsa meditation. You're circulating the energy of the body. It's one important thing about the ecosystem. We're constantly circulating water through the ecosystem. That's another reason why we're going to have the sound-empowered ethical metaphysical science, because the free energy model we will bring into being, the free energy, because everything has to constantly be in motion. Nothing should be allowed to stagnate. Just as the energy inside of us. Speaking of electricity, that brings us to the next circle, which is, and speaking of ecosystems, right, and plants and everything else, we get seed. Society engaged electronic democracy, or society engaged electric democracy. I like electric better than electronic because electric also means dynamic. Electric is immediate. And part of the work that we're here doing now is to recognize that the universe is electric. And let's return to the foundation. Let's go back to Eden. Let's start working like as if we were living in Eden again, the fourth dimension before we fell. And let's start working with the energies in that way and applying it in our life and all facets of our life, including democracy, which we're not going to talk about governance. We're going to talk about consensus building and society engaged electronic democracy, the heart of which is basically wiki policy. And in our vision of the future, the Parliament of Canada doesn't have political parties. It has members of parliament that are voted, but all those members of parliament have in front of them tablets or screens or whatever, and it's like it's like a live stream like we're doing right now, where during question period, people can post comments, people can interject and demand their member of parliament present this particular point of view, because that's the point of view of the constituents that they've arrived at through this process of online interactivity and debate, and saying this is what the majority of this particular riding wants or feels is the right course of action. And so the MP has to stand up and present that. The members of parliament, the elected members, need to understand that they've been elected to serve, not govern, serve. And it's this shift that needs to take place. And we all have these devices, right? We all have our phones and whatnot. Well, I don't seem to have mine right now. That's probably a good thing. We all have our little handheld devices and everything else. So, and we all have, social media and everything else that we distract ourselves with and we busy ourselves with. Why not be able to leverage that technology for something meaningful and something purposeful? And we don't mean endless, senseless debate, because that's the other aspect of society-engaged electronic democracy, is that there's no political parties and there's no political spectrum. Conservative, liberal, this, that. Democracy should be about consensus building. It should be about meeting in the middle. There's no sense in this war of attrition, this separation, and this trying to, again, expansion and increasing the gap, the distance between us. It should be the reverse. And you see in the times that we're living in, this polarization and radicalization, and this constant extremism, which is coming into play, and tribalism, and it's all based around this sense of identification. And our vehicle to plant the first seed in this world here in Canada is right here. Centrist Democratic Progress Canada, CDPC, which is its own, practically a mantra. CDPC. There's a lot of E's, a lot of I's, a lot of E's in these sounds, and you can see not only we have the Holy Eight here, we have the cross, we have the Pax Christus, if you're familiar with that symbol, and also this maple leaf has 12 points. It's the recognition that we get further working together in a dance, just like the Tao, recognizing that we are not adversaries. We might have opposing viewpoints, but those opposing viewpoints, if harnessed, if that tension can be harnessed in a dance, it can propel us in forward motion, just like the Tao. In other words, Einstein once said, "I want to know how God thinks. The rest are details." The Attlas project is about being as God is, not just knowing what God thinks or how God thinks, but being God. Being God, having a Christic humanity again. Well, what do we know about God? What do we know about Source? We know that Source is the first expression out of Source is the Tao. Positive, affirmation, negative, negation, and reconciliation. So there's a push-pull, but there's always a return to the center. There's a push-pull, but always a return to the center. And it's this forward momentum. That's why Centrist Democratic Progress Canada, you see this You see this P and this D, right? Democratic progress. It's circling around and around and around and around and around, just like the Dow. It's just spinning with forward momentum. And each round, and just like, you know, the oscillation of sound, the vibration, there's an or the DNA, like the twisted pairs, right? There's an expansion and a contraction, an expansion and a contraction, but we have to remember to come back together again, to come together, have opposing viewpoints, but still be together. Have opposing viewpoints, but still be together. And what is it that pulls us together? Well, for lack of a better word, it's love. Love has the capacity for both severity and mercy united as one and expressed as love. Why does it have to be hate? Why does it have to be anger? Why does it have to be animosity? Why does it have to be all these things? Why does it have to be fear? Fear is the mind killer. We know about fear. We wrote 80,000 word essay, blog, book, whatever you want to call it, on our blog, Facing Your Fears Many Faces. And we're not done with that topic yet. And look at the planet. The planet is completely gripped by fear. So this is another project that we have underway, and it's not going to be ready in time for this fall's election, but in 4 years' time, and possibly 8 years' time, we might have the wherewithal to actually show Canadians, at least, the wisdom of this path, the wisdom of the of union of opposing forces, rather than harnessing the fear and animosity between them to drive people away and divide and conquer. Now, we don't believe in divide and conquer. We believe in unite and progress. Next, we have CV or CV. Szív in Hungarian, the word szív is heart. My heart, szív. But it's CV is fine, because CV as in curriculum vitae, but it stands for social, ethical, economic value. This is a new kind of commerce. This is a new kind of business. And it utilizes blockchain technology. And we wrote about this when we published this, the Atlas Project, Volume 1, which was many years ago. Everything you see here on the screen, by the way, is going to end up in a new released version of the Atlas Project, a new print version of it, when we get to it. And of course, we're going to be reworking all of the stuff that was in the original volume, which basically was C democracy, C culture, and C economics, and C visual aid. This is going to be updated, right? We had to do this. This was important, but at the time, but now we have to bring it into up to date with everything else that we now know. And social, ethical, economic value, or social, ethical, or social environmental economics, whatever the final combination of those words is going to be. The bottom line is, economics is flawed. Capitalism is flawed. It's fundamentally flawed. And as opposed to tearing it all down and throwing the baby out with the bathwater, We just recognize what that flaw is, and we need to plug the leak. And again, it's off balance sheet debt. It's a bit of a complex argument. It's not that complex. You know about accounting. You know that assets must equal liabilities plus equity, and the balance sheet must balance. So again, based on the principle of the Tao and on the principles of balance and the law of opposites, that everything that's created on the positive side has to have its analogous creation on the negative side. Social, ethical, economic valuation is about recognizing the intangible costs of capitalism, the intangible costs of commerce and economics, and accounting for that. And then putting that accounting into the price, so that the price of a good or a service is not just measured in quantity, but also quality. And the quality is quantified. So in other words, you can pick up product A and product B, and one will have a CV, right? A C value of whatever it is, A, B, C, D, E, F, let's say. So one has a C value of A, the one has a C value of D. They might be the same price, or one might be cheaper, one might be more expensive. But let's say the more expensive one is also has a much higher C value. You can see the value. You can now see the value and offset what their asking price is by seeing the value, the social, ethical, environmental, economic value. It's completing the picture, because right now we're in the dark. You want to go buy something, you have no idea what if it was made ethically, if the ingredients, the contents of the packaging, the materials, etc., like whether or not the workers were well treated. You don't know anything, or very, very little, and it doesn't, maybe it has a couple seals of approval on there, but you don't even know what those means most of the time. But we're talking about a blockchain powered valuation system where companies that are doing triple bottom line accounting already are tracking all of this, and they're using the blockchain to record and create this live ledger of all of these values. And then that blockchain, access to that information on the label of the product or goods or service or company, can be just a QR code that you scan. And you get instant access to the C valuation on that company. So for a very, very long time, companies have been judging their employees or potential employees on their CV, right? Well, now the CV will give customers and partners and the world the ability to judge companies on their CV. It's turning the tables and saying, listen, if a company is a person under the law, then we should be able to have the means of evaluating them, because every dollar we spend is our vote. Because these companies, these multinational corporations, are incredibly powerful, and they have incredible sway over politicians and governments and decision-making processes. And many times business associations write the legislation and then hand it to politicians to rubber stamp it. So it's about time that we start evaluating companies on more than just their share price. But what about their CV? Continuing around our final seventh circle here, we have Vishasi. We shall see. We shall see. This stands for Visionary, Interactive, Enlightened Society, High Art, and Culture. It's in the golden age, the next humanity on this planet will return to making things of true beauty and music and visual art and sculpture, and which is imbued with the very essence of the human drama and the universal truths which uplift and awaken and enlighten and enrich us. High art and craft, which is an expression of that love, that timeless, limitless light, but also the passion of enduring suffering for the sake of others, and for the sake of love. So passion means that which you are willing to suffer for. That's what passion is. When you are passionate for something or about something, you're willing to suffer for it. And that's what all great art seeks to do, is explain that relationship, or explore the relationship between what we long to do and what we find worthy and meaningful to do, and the obstacles and the suffering we must endure and the obstacles we must overcome in order to be able to achieve that which we feel in our heart, which we long in our heart to do. In a way, it's telling the story of self-actualization, and it's the hero's journey in many ways, and expressions of that, and the limitless expressions of that. And not just that, but there's a reason why Vishasi has that sh sound in it, because we want to be clear that we're moving into a more feminine age, and it doesn't have to be this traditional patriarchal type stories anymore, but it still needs to reflect the alm of life, which is the hero's journey, the descending into hell, the descending into suffering, and the overcoming suffering in order to grow and to progress. And high art also expressing how it is that individuals fall, and how individuals fall into darkness, and that constant interplay between light and dark, good and evil. But we can move into a place beyond good and evil, and just into this place of a dance between these two opposing forces, and how the interaction between them creates the movement, creates the kinetic energy and the flow of the universe, and that we need both, right? And that really brings us back to the arch and the ion on the two sides here, these two pillars, because that is the real grand synthesis which has to take place, and the grand reconciliation. Because let's face it, let's be honest, this is enormous. This is beyond one man. This is the work of Christ in the world. This is the work of this is the ark. This is the Ark of the Covenant, and this is the covenant for the next humanity, the new covenant. And that new covenant needs to make peace so that this humanity can be at peace. And so that the White Lodge and the Black Lodge can know peace. The Black Lodge is going to be busy as hell already destroying this humanity, destroying this planet. That's their job. Tearing everything down, deconstructing everything. Let them. Let it go. No attachments. No attachments. Let them go. Let them do their work. But as they're doing that work and they're tearing everything down, and you know, we also have to reset the board, which means the representatives of the Black Lodge, those elite who have been the useful idiots of the Black Lodge, who are possessed by fear, for example, we need to welcome them. We need to be able to invite them and welcome them to come and contribute to the Atlas project. Come be a part of it. If you have the wealth and you have the resources and you have the wherewithal, I mean, there are billionaires already, like in a space race. I mean, you know, they're shooting rockets into space. They don't need to shoot rockets into space. It's a complete waste of time and energy. What they should be doing is working with fourth dimensional metaphysical science. But before we get there, why don't we work on building the Ark first? There are cruise companies and shipping companies right now that are tearing down and tearing apart ships for scrap metal because of this lockdown stuff. And the cruise industry was decimated, and the shipping industry has been decimated. So there are literally hundreds and hundreds of these mega tankers and mega shipping vessels and cruise lines that are being scrapped. Don't scrap them. Preserve them. We need them. We'll need them. We will need them to move individuals around the planet out of harm's way, and into high order rainforest ecosystems, many of which will be built here in Canada, many of which will be in Northern Ontario. We have plenty of room in Canada, and if we have higher rainforest ecosystems connected to ecodomes growing food and cleaning water and self-sustained, and you know, there's a reason why the prophecies about Turtle Island exist, and we'll be able to get into that in more detail when that information becomes available to us, and that we can share it with you. We have a very loose brand associated with this quadrant, this Visha C, and that's Atlas Arts. And it's ironic because Atlas Arts was the first aspect of the Atlas project, which we were made privy to way back in high school. The Atlas project began as Atlas Arts, and the notion that we could help change the world, help bring more peace and more love and more, we could make the world a better place by creating high art. In our particular case, it was theater and film that interested us. We actually studied English and drama at university. And we worked in theater, we did some independent film, and but it was always our longing to show and tell, and to show and tell and create experiences that were cathartic for individuals to experience, because that is something that we have always valued and treasured in our life, is the ability to be touched by the Christ, but be touched by God and feel the hand of God on our heart, overwhelmed with beauty, and so that we cry tears of joy. This is such a profound experience in our life that at a very early age we dedicated ourselves and we devoted ourselves to living a life whereby in one way, shape, or form, we will participate in creating high art so that the things that we create will bring tears of joy to those who experience it. Because there's nothing more beautiful than having an experience like that. Watching a movie that brings tears to your eyes because it's just so beautiful. Listening to music that just the tears stream down your face because it's just you're living, you're completely shrouded and encompassed and embraced with love and beauty and love. That's something that we want everybody to be able to experience and to know. And therefore we need to move away from the direction that we've been heading in, which is content creation and creating content. We don't want to create content. We want to create experience. An experience, right? It's very different than content. You consume content, but an experience, you interact with an experience. An experience can give you self-evident experiential knowledge. You can get gnosis from an experience. You can get gnosis from a movie or a video game or something which is an experience. But if it's mindless, click, 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 click. If you can play the video game but be thinking about something else or doing 12 other things, and not be engaged by it, but or if you're completely mesmerized by it and just turn into a zombie playing it and you just lose yourself and lose everything. But it's the litmus test for us has always been, does it bring a tear to my eye? Does it make me cry? Do I feel the Christ? Do I feel God? Am I touched by God? And if the answer is yes, then it's worth exploring in deeper levels. It's worth engaging with with completely and consciously and holistically. So once again, if we're very quickly going around the circle, in the center we have gnosis and a language which is powerful enough to communicate it, to share it, so that we can gain access to it and share it, and also remember and carve it in stone if we need to, like the Egyptians did, so that future generations won't forget, and so that the next humanity won't fall asleep again. And then we have at the top the sphere of psychology. We have the sphere of advanced human habitat. We have the sphere of democracy, SEED, society engaged electronic democracy. We have the sphere of commerce and economics, social, ethical, economic value. We have the sphere of art, high art and culture. And we have the sphere of science, sound empowered, ethical, metaphysical science. Science, psychology, habitat, democracy, economics, art, and gnosis. If you're wondering where religion and philosophy are, they're nowhere. What we need is self-evident experiential knowledge. We don't need religion. We don't need identification with the White Lodge and identification with the Black Lodge. What we need is love. Love needs to be our religion. And forget about dreams of supernal worlds and supernal hierarchies and this archangel and that archangel and so on and so forth. You know, all of that is just an illusion too. All of that is just complication and illusion. Be here now in the world. Very, very early in our experience as a young adult, we were born and raised Roman Catholic, but we eventually became atheist as we turned away from all that superfluous religious dogma and all the crimes of the church and everything else. And we always return back to the essence and the truth of things, which was love. Love is the only religion. And love is severity and mercy in balance. So this war between White Lodge and Black Lodge, and again, we're opponents. We're not enemies. We're opponents. We have to be aware that our opponent is trying to defeat us, and we can't be naive. We have to be cognizant of that. We also have to be careful not to fall into the trap. But one of the traps that we fall into is fear. And fear, and that's like what it was it Roosevelt or Eisenhower? I can't remember who was. He said, one of them said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Now, it's an ironic kind of paradoxical statement, but there's truth in it. Because if you fear the archons, if you fear the egos, if you fear the Black Lodge, you make an enemy of them, you're already caught in their trap. Which is why it's possible that the whole solar hierarchies and all that stuff is all bundled up in with the karma of this planet, because it's all an illusion. The whole universe is an illusion. All there is mind, the great mind of the universe, and source. That's the absolute nothing from which it all sprang, and that is love. That is love. We've shared with you our poem before, Ratatoskr and the Seed, and we can share the link again. And the fact of the matter is that this poem, divinely inspired, it really is where we are at and where this humanity is at, is that it's time for this humanity to reset, reconcile, and renew. And there is going to be much suffering and death and destruction, but that comes with the territory. And what we need to focus on is, as ark builders, and there's two things that go in the ark, right? There's biology, a pair of seeds, and also the knowledge, the foundation for the next humanity. What you see before you in synthesis is as far as we've gotten that journey as an individual expression of the Logos, of the Christ. This is as far and as much as we've been able to do with no resources, with very few people on our side, very few willing to listen, very few recognizing that we are in the end times and that the Great Reset is coming, and being judged and berated and you know, for not being able to fit in, for not being able to, you know, follow the crowd, follow the herd, get material success, whatever you want to call it. And we just followed our heart. We followed our being. We did what we had to do because we knew that there would come a time when our work would see the light of day, and when the world would be in need of exactly what we had to offer, to give. And that's what we offer. We show you tonight, the ArchAion. The ArchAion of the Atlas project. The Ark. But we can't build it alone. We need all the children of Christ, all the children of God, to step up and share. And we are all children of God. The 1% elite are no less children of God than you and I. We don't need to harbor any animosity towards them, any jealousy, any envy. That's all falling into the trap of separation and us versus them. What we need to do is show them that they have no reason to be afraid of us. Instead of all those memes on the internet about conspiracy theories and this and that, and how the New World Order, they want to control everything, they want to enslave everyone, they want to put everybody in camps and blah, 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 blah. Instead of falling into that trap of fear and anger and making those elite, those 1% and the power brokers and the ones who feel like they have everything to lose, instead of making them feel terrified and making them feel like they have to dig in their heels and that they really do have to ratchet down the thumb screws and get this humanity under control, under their thumb. Instead of doing that, why don't we tell them, you have nothing to fear from us. You have nothing to fear but fear itself. The Tao, we can be opponents, we can be opposites without being enemies. We can be adversaries without being enemies. But at the end of the day, we're all on this planet together. We're all in this together. And at the end of the day, the real end of the day, we are all children of God. We all have the innermost intimate Christ within. Even those who are the useful idiots of the Black Lodge, and even those who are the conscious agents of the Black Lodge. It's time for White Lodge and Black Lodge. It's time for us to disassociate ourselves from these monikers and just recognize that it's time for us to come together in love and work together for the sake of this humanity and reset the board. And that will be the best thing for everyone concerned if we do that. That we create an arc, and that we help as many people as possible awaken and self-realize their source of love within. And so if there is a meditation for you to practice, along with Hamsa, pranayama, the meditation to practice is to meditate on your innermost Tao. your innermost emanation of love, of severity and mercy, and meditate on your innermost being. And once you reach that point where you've reached the still point of the 0 point of nothingness within yourself, you may use your visualization and expand yourself out and recognize that the whole of the world is you, and that everything that the world is going through, you're going through, and the world is what it is because that's what your psyche is inside. So if you can expel the moneylenders from the temple, then you can help expel the moneylenders from the planet and perform the great reset of karma and reconcile, forgive, let go of all your attachments and identifications. Let go of your identifications to anything and everything, and let go of your attachments to anything and everything, including your attachment to hate and envy and past trauma, or it really is just take all the tension of that in-breath that we've been holding now. We've been holding our breath. We personally feel like we've been holding our breath for an entire lifetime of 48 years. We've been holding our breath, awaiting for this moment to arrive. Well, the moment is here. And I, for one, let out a big sigh of relief, and I have no fear. Conquered my fear. I've not conquered, integrated, recognized it for what it is. It's not this terrible, horrible demon. It's a little furball. It's a pet. It was a companion. It was a familiar. And it was there to teach me something. And the fear that the planet is going through right now, and the fear that it's facing right now, is here to teach the planet something, as is all the emotions that the people of the world are about to go through. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. The Aum of life, right? The hero's journey. We have to descend into hell before we can ascend a champion. And these messages, this message must be spread and shared. There is in the Tao, in the circular dynamism of the universe and the foundation of the universe, the opposing repulsion and attraction forces which constitute the primordial energetic vibrational foundation of reality and mind and all consciousness and all experience and light itself and the darkness. The reconciliation of those two things and the fusion coming back into the light. There's a reason why we were so enamored when we were a child by the film The Dark Crystal. And at the end of the film, the Skeksis and the mystics combine, and before the Dark Crystal, they combine and reunite and become these true angelic beings who had been torn apart. And because they had torn apart, they were torn. The crystal had cracked. And because the crystal had cracked, they had been separated into two, and they'd been living apart, and they threw the entire world into chaos. That's very much what the situation on this planet has been and is, and what we are here to reverse. Not try and reverse, but reverse. And we've known this ever since we were a child. Kneeling on our knees in church, staring up at Christ staring down at us from the cross, and knowing that that was Christ and not a man, but a representation of the Christic force, which descends down and invites all to come together and unite on the rows of the cross, at the crossroads, at the 0 point of severity and mercy, and the cross of light. Between severity and mercy, there's the rows of love, the backbone, the spinal column of the universe. And the time has come, the time is now. And we can't do this alone, and we shouldn't have to do it alone, because we're not alone. Neither are you alone. We are one. We are all one. And everything that we're about to experience and go through is an illusion. And if we recognize it as that, and we have no attachments to any of it, and we have no fear of any of it, then we will be able to pass through the fire. We will have the strong box of salvation within. We will have the ark, the vessel of love, and the bridge over troubled waters. And we will pass through the flames. We will walk through the flames. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall not be afraid. This is our moment. But the ArchAion, we have to act. It's a call to action here and now, to act in and on the Tao, to be or not to be. That is the question. Well, the solution now is not to continue that question and not to continue that argument, whether it's nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take up arms against a sea of troubles and by avoiding end them. No, now is the perfect time to embrace being, not being. In other words, to be in it, but not of it. And recognize that suffering is an essential part of growth. It's an essential part of the Tao. Affirmation and negation, they're positive and negative, are both required. But don't identify with either of them, positive or negative. Meditate on the great I am that I am. Meditate on love. Beyond good and evil. Beyond white lodge and black lodge. Beyond light and dark. Because we have to move beyond this game that we've been playing, because we've reached the limit. We've reached the end game. And we may as well reach out to our opponent, call it a draw, and reset the board in preparation for the next game. Thank you for tuning in. We will be streaming live again at noon tomorrow. And probably again at 8 o'clock. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And we hope that you heard something of value. We may, well, we'll see how much rest we can get. If we get enough rest, then we were considering the possibility of doing a live stream tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, but we think we'll be too wiped to do that. We need an opportunity, a chance to recharge our batteries as well. But noon tomorrow will do so that people in Europe at least can get a chance to hear us out. And we'll be covering a lot of the same material that we covered today. And remember, this is Atlas in formation, which means a lot of this stuff is still fluid. Nothing here is completely set in stone. We are in the process of bringing this into the world, as it were. So you guys are experiencing this as we are, in this process. You are part of this process with us, and we appreciate you being here and being a part of it. Thank you all again, and we hope to see you again soon. Good night, everyone.